Hey guys, welcome back. My name is Cade and I'm joined by my friend Chris, and this is part two of our discussion about Netflix's Daredevil. All right, so Chris, where we left off, we were talking about how this is a show that really makes you think. And I think a big part of that comes from the storytelling in the show. And that's definitely a positive because the storytelling in the show, I think, is really great. And something that I do like about it is it's not too similar to your sort of typical superhero shows because I think a lot of other shows, while this isn't a bad thing about them, but shows like Arrow and Flash and Smallville, I think shows like that were a lot more like the formula was usually more of a villain of the week type of show. Like they had an overarching plot each season, but it was a lot more, okay, now we're going to fight this villain in this episode and then another villain next week and then another one after that. And sometimes we'll bump into the big bad of the season. But that wasn't so much the case with this show. It wasn't a villain of the week type show. It was a lot more serialized with each season, which was actually kind of nice to see because it felt a lot more focused, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and there are some TV shows out there that don't do it as well as this one. So this one sticks to it. This one, like I said, makes you think. This one engages with the audience. It doesn't hold your hand. So you don't know what's happening, but you have to kind of figure it out as well. Other TV shows like that, they hold your hand. They're like, okay, this is going to happen, but this is how, and they explain everything. You're like, oh, well, this was, I get it, but I don't like it. This one, like I said, you can engage with it. You can engage with the characters. You engage with the story, and there is one villain, and even in this show itself, it's been a consistent villain with some other ones thrown in. Yeah, you got some of the other mobs and bosses and stuff like that thrown in there as well, which is necessary because it's Hell's Kitchen. You've got all these different organizations there, and then you have the Kingpin, and he was still the main villain, even though there was sidekick villains thrown in there.
Yeah,
In a
we also had characters like we eventually had the Hand at one point in season two.
Mhm.
We also had Bullseye during season three. We had Vanessa in season one and three. We had the Owl from season one. They brought in a bunch of different characters, but they weren't just villain of the week villains. They were present throughout most of the show, and
Mhm.
they actually had roles to play. They weren't just thrown in there for the sake of throwing them in there. So that was fun to see. And also, the storytelling itself is great because the fact that I said to you it's a lot more serialized and a lot more focused. And I think because of that, even though each season is 13 episodes, what I think is cool is each season feels like one giant movie, like just one really, really long movie that you have to go through. And that's always how I looked at it when I watched the show. Yeah, it's not like I'm watching a TV show right now. It's like I'm just watching a movie that's broken up into all these different pieces. So that's something that I always enjoyed about it when I was watching.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, superhero movies, if they were done like this, I think it would capture more of an audience. I don't want to say more of like a sophisticated audience, but more of an audience that could jump in and be like, I like the beginning, I like the middle, I like the end, I like the growth, I like the roller coaster, I like the emotions. A lot of superhero movies, especially the Marvel ones of late, they lose me so quick. Like within the first 30 minutes, I'm like, I'm not invested. Like you're not keeping me here. It's because of that the writing, the way that they're supposed to try and catch you. They're selling this video, this movie. If they're not pitching it correctly in the very first 30 minutes, then why would I want to sit through, another 90 just to maybe get something out of it? This film or this TV show does it in the first episode all the way to the end. Yeah, there's a couple of filler parts in there where he is playing almost detective, he's playing a lawyer. But even those bring you into the film as well, or the show as well. So it's very well written, and gosh, more superhero films, like once again Batman, if they could do it into a film like this and make it a mature rating and make it like the way this is done, you would have a killer Batman film.
Or
You would have
show.
a show. I keep saying film. Sorry.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, a killer Batman show. You could do that with any superhero almost. Like you could do it with, say, for instance, Aquaman, my favorite superhero. I love Aquaman. If you could do an episode, like maybe not episodic episode, but like a whole series, a whole season leading up to everything, you're gonna capture an audience of all ages.
Well, and imagine this. I know you're not a big fan of the character of Spider-Man, but imagine if they did something like this with Spider-Man.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, Spider-Man's that's a hard one for me. I do like in the I think it was the last one where it played to my point. If you put Spider-Man in the middle of nowhere, he's hitchhiking. He's useless if he's not in a place where he has buildings, somewhere he can swing, something he can use. But yes, exactly. If you were to do this with a Spider-Man character, you could flesh out more of Uncle Ben. You could flesh out more of his parents. You can flesh out more of the science part of it. He's supposed to be this smart kid and a photographer and a superhero and in high school. There's a lot of stuff there that you can really dive into to give that character so much more depth. And I'm so glad they did it with Daredevil. Like I said, I was skeptic at first, but when I saw it, I was like, yeah, no, this is exactly what they should be doing the whole time.
Yeah, I agree completely. And aside from the storytelling, I think one of the best things about the show would have to be the action sequences as well as the fight choreography. Because I remember hearing when the show was first announced, they said that they had an incredible stunt team. And I thought, okay, I hope the stunts in the show are as good as, Arrow or anything like that. And then I see the show and I thought, wow, did the stunts in this just top Arrow? Because I got to tell you, the fight scenes, all the different stunts that they do in the show, it's just incredible to watch. And actually, fun fact, I heard that, there were times where they would show it to people and people thought that they thought some of it would have to be CGI. And I can see why they would think that. But yeah, no, most of it wasn't CGI. The guys were all actually doing all those things. And that made me respect the show even more because they achieved so much with that, all the fight scenes.
Yeah, CGI can only go so far, honestly. When you're doing it like real like this, when you got those fight choreographers going in there, when they're taking hit after hit, and they're making it believable, that I hats off to them. But then you can tell when they're CGI. There are certain things you just can't take a sword and cut someone's head off in a film,
Right.
that's obvious. But without that in there, all these fight scenes are done very well. Like I said, I was comparing to almost John Wick style because it was just like I think was in season 3 they had a 10-minute fight scene without any breaks.
Yes, because that was in, I think it was episode 4. They had an 11-minute long take where Matt was just going through the prison, just fighting all the prisoners after they got released from their cells. And all I could think was, holy hell, this is just huge. This is done so well. And they had scenes, fight sequences similar to that throughout the first 2 seasons. In season 1, they had that iconic hallway fight scene that I think was, it was shorter, but it was still well done. In season 2, they had the stairwell fight where Matt had to save Punisher. He was just going down the stairs fighting off the gang. And yeah, all of those really long takes of fight sequences are done so well. And I will agree that season 3 probably had the best one where he's just going through the prison fighting everybody. And another thing that's great is the fact that I like how Daredevil in the show, he's a hero who takes hits, because I think there are some heroes where they obviously come when they're fighting, they do have conflicts with fighting, but it's a lot more like they don't really take much damage. They don't get hit too often. And I think with Daredevil, I love that he took hits. It was nice to see because it reminds you that he is human. And so that was kind of nice to see, but he still got back up and he still fought back. And it showed you how great a fighter he really is.
Yeah, I mean it makes him human. Yeah, like you said, some of these superheroes they'll take a hit a couple of times, but you'll never see them bleed.
Right.
That's okay. So you're a god then. Then this is a fight that's obvious. But when you see the fight scenes in this one, it's like, holy crap! I don't think I'd get up from that hit. These are some good hits. And in the end, after the fight scenes, and he's just all bloody and beaten and bruised, you're like, oh man, I feel you. I feel it. I wasn't there,
Yeah.
but I feel it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that apart from the fight scenes, I think what makes the storytelling, the fights, and all the character development so great is the fact that the show is presented in such a grounded tone. And I think that was the best decision for the show. The show is dark, and I think it really matches with the type of story that it's telling. It's not a more here's what I do think. I think this isn't a show that's for everybody because there are people who prefer a more, and we talked about this when we did our Marvel versus DC debate. There are people who prefer more lighthearted shows, and that's definitely not what this is. This is a more serious, more mature show. And honestly, I think that was the right decision to make with it because they obviously made it more grounded. They made it more like the Dark Knight trilogy, if that makes sense. And I think that was definitely the right call.
Well, Daredevil's origin story isn't a lighthearted origin story. It's not at all. It's something that nobody would want to ever go through. It's very traumatic. You got your father there who's a professional boxer who had to throw a couple of fights for money, and then he's telling his son, "Don't ever do this." There's a lot of stuff there, and it doesn't traumatize him though. It only makes him stronger. So I mean, in a sense, the writing there, once again, it's like instead of taking all this in and as a traumatic experience, he's taking it in as like, you know what, I'm gonna do something better with my origin stories and do something better for Hell's Kitchen for this one. And that's just because of the writing. Like I hope that the Daredevil writers are not going on strike because these are the guys who we want to hire for more films or more shows, more films, whatever. These are the kind of writers we need in the writing rooms making our stories because they get it, they understand it.
They
Um,
did get it. Yeah.
the other writers, I mean, Thor's Love and Thunder, they can go on strike. I'm sorry, but
Yeah, no, I see what you mean, but I do think that what I was saying though, relating back to how I said it's not a show that's for everybody.
yeah.
Well, the reason I say that is because, there are audiences who get more emotion out of lighter films and shows, but there are other people who get more emotion out of darker, more serious films or shows. And that's kind of the person that I am. I get more emotion and investment out of shows and films that are like this, that are portrayed this way, because having that sort of, approach to it, I just feel more invested in that way. Do you?
Well, I know you're a horror movie fan. You love your horror movies.
Yes.
You love those kind of things, the suspensefulness, the you have to think about it and stuff. Uh, who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy? Who is, it makes you think. I am not a horror fan, but this to me isn't a horror show.
Right.
It's like you said, grounded. Um, and in that sense, you know, it has the brutality in it, but it has the like
It still has heart to it.
yes, heart, exactly, heart. It has the heart. It draws you in like sympathetically, feelings wise, emotionally. On a sad note, it makes you care. It even has its ups where it makes you feel happy, like yo, this is the good feelings. It has all those different feelings. And in that case, other than age restrictions, I feel like it is a show for almost everybody because you can get both of those feelings out of it. And I believe that with that kind of writing, you could do a Thor film or a Thor show like this per se, because you got Odin. Odin's a powerful person. There was the wars. There was the upbringing between Thor and Loki. I mean, you got all this amazing, potentially dark in a sense, but also very upbringing as well. You could do that. There's the with those kind of writing, with those kind of writers and that kind of writing, you could do that with almost any superhero. And they did it with Daredevil. And this should be proof of concept that this kind of stuff works.
Absolutely. And I think that aside from the grounded tone that the show has, one of the things that I think the show does really, really well is the fact that I think it's a crime show before it is a superhero show. Because I think it's that's kind of how I looked at the Batman from 2022. It's a detective story and a crime epic with Batman in it in a way. And that's kind of how I look at this show. It's a massive crime saga show with Daredevil in it. And I think that that's a unique approach because if you look at it, the film explores, aside from Kingpin's massive criminal empire, you also have the Russian mafia, the Irish mob, the Yakuza, etc. And the show explores crime and corruption and so much, and Daredevil is caught in the middle of all of it. And I think it's a crime show before it is a superhero show. And I thought that that was always an interesting concept.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. And that's once again, that's where when you have the writers the way they are, that think the way they are, they can bring all those multiple different things in there, a superhero and a detective and a crime show and make it believable because yeah, like you said, you have all those different groups, organizations, and Matt's doing both. He's putting guys behind bars, and then he's kicking ass somewhere else. He's doing all these different things on both sides, and I definitely agree. It does both of those very well. You do get the lawyer side. You do get him outwitting everybody because, well, maybe it's his heightened senses because he can hear heartbeats or whatnot. But you know he's able to fight crime in the courtroom and fight crime outside of the courtroom. And when you can separate those and yet bring them together in the same episode, even without losing your audience, yeah, I definitely agree. It's a the crime show part of the film definitely is a big part of it, and they do it very well writing wise.
Yeah, they do, of course. All right, I think that's all we have to talk about. Anything else you wanted to say about the show before we wrap?
Um, Not really, other than the fact that I really hope season four. I'm praying for season four to be in good hands.
Yeah, the Daredevil Born Again reboot. Yeah, we'll
Yeah,
definitely see what happens. I mean, they brought back Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, and I'm happy about that. I'm excited to see their rivalry continued. I'm excited to see that explored. And whether it does well or not, time will tell, and we'll see what happens. But I'm still going to watch it either way because I think I'll be curious and I want to see how it goes.
I'll definitely be curious. I'll definitely watch it. Just the fact that Daredevil was in She-Hulk, that hurt. That hurt my feelings.
Oh, it did.
It really hurt. Well, I mean, because I was obviously the way She-Hulk was, and then they brought Matt Murdock in there, and I feel like they did my boy dirty.
I see what you mean. Well, tell you what, there is a possibility that I think this new show, Daredevil Born Again, they've said that it's really going to explore a lot more about him being a lawyer and also as with being Daredevil and his whole rivalry with Kingpin. So we'll definitely see how that goes. And again, time will tell. And hey, I have faith in them. I'm sure that they'll do fine.
I hope so. Me too.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. All right, guys. I think that's the end of our discussion. Thanks so much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you later. Thanks. Bye.